This week we've got Lonnie Dupre telling us about his adventures in Greenland and Denali.
Yeah, so I'm related to a past explorer and it's in my blood, so I guess there's no cure for it. A lot of people ask me how I got started doing this stuff, and I grew up on what I call a cash crop farm in central Minnesota, where we had basically 12 acres of land that we grew stuff by hand, picked everything by hand, and then put it in a pickup truck and drove to the nearest corner and sold everything out of the back of the pickup. So I spent my summer vacations planted on the back of a Ford pickup tailgate most of my summers. But I guess I have to, my mother's kind of responsible, I think, for some of my running around, because growing up on the farm, you know, after we had breakfast, she would say, okay, now I want you to go outside and I don't want to see you again till lunch. And then after lunch it was, I don't want to see you again till supper. And so all of us kids would run out, and then after supper it was, I don't want to see it till dark. So that's pretty much how we spent, you know, after chores on the farm, just exploring the countryside and the swamps and all that. So I think that's where my want to explore came from, is my mother. What I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to just run through about half the program is going to run through some images from past expeditions and a little bit of introduction on how I got to this point, and then I'm going to go into the Denali expedition. And basically, why I decided to climb Denali is because I wanted to utilize my 25 years of Arctic experience and put all that knowledge together into a climb of Denali in the winter, because it's very, very windy, very cold, very challenging up there, and I just wanted to be able to do that to challenge myself. Most of my other projects have been revolved around bringing attention to Inuit culture or climate change, global warming, that kind of stuff. And this was kind of a self-funded project that I just went up and did, and just been back now for less than, I guess, a month or so. So anyways, this picture here is back in 1989, when Paul Shirkey invited me on an expedition called the Bering Bridge Expedition, which all you are probably familiar of, where we dog sledded 1,000 miles through Siberia, across the Bering Sea to Nome, Alaska, to bring attention, or to help bring peace between the two superpowers at that time, Russia and the United States. And that was a couple-month project, again by dog team and ski. And then after that expedition, a friend of mine, Malcolm Vance, and I went on to make the first West Weeks crossing of Canada's famed Northwest Passage in the wintertime. And as we traveled by dog team, we visited 13 Inuit villages along the way. And this is Malcolm here, and I just dicing up some Arctic char that we're going to have for our lunches. Some of it we eat raw, some of it we cook. But what was interesting about visiting those villages along the way is just to learn about their culture and how their culture is changing. And some of the first villages we ran into, you could see a really drastic change in their culture since 1923-24, when Knut Rasmussen went through those villages by dog team. They're changing a lot, as you can see with this Aerosmith T-shirt. This guy's carving a soapstone carving of looks like a bearded walrus or bearded seal, and so I was just learning as much as we could about the Inuit villages that we met, taking pictures of some of the kids and the people that we met, and just you know, some of the Inuit elders we talked to, they no longer drive dog teams. They're just using snow machines now, mostly for everything. But as we went from Alaska, which those folks seemed to lose a lot of their language and culture, but the further east we went towards, say, Greenland, the more and more of that culture was retained. And when you get all the way to Greenland, they still drive dogs. They still hunt walrus and polar bear by dog team. Very traditional lifestyle there. After the Northwest Passage expedition, which was a 3,000-mile trip that we completed in 5 months, ending in Churchill, I started planning right away an expedition to circumnavigate Greenland. And Greenland was a huge undertaking because Greenland is 6,500 miles all the way around. And no one has ever done it before because of very good reason. All this entire western or eastern shore of Greenland is completely packed with sea ice all the way around it. Sea ice flows down this direction and packs up against this coast and then swings around the south and packs on the west coast. So it's almost impossible to get around that island unless you're going to travel in some amphibious type of fashion. Kayak and then dragging your kayaks over the ice floes. That kind of way. So what we, myself and a friend of mine, John Holger, we decided we're going to kayak the southern part in the summer when it's somewhat ice-free, but it's never ice-free, really. And then dog sled around the north. Get around the entire island all non-motorized. And that's the best way to learn what Greenland's all about, of course. When we first decided we're going to try to circumnavigate Greenland, we tried to look up material on Greenland in the United States to study it, and there was very little information out there about Greenland. Almost none, matter of fact. I had to go to Denmark to learn as much as I could about Greenland. So this white area in the center part of Greenland is ice cap about 1.5 miles thick, and 85% of all of our icebergs are formed from this island. What holds that ice in the center part of Greenland is a ring of mountains in brown you can see around the edge. Very, very difficult to circumnavigate because when you were kayaking in this direction, yet the prevailing winds are in this direction. You know, ice flows in this direction, but again, the prevailing winds are like that. It really was difficult to plan. So you can see, here's John and I. We're pulled up on ice floe on the east side of Greenland, looking at a map, having a little lunch. This picture was taken the end of July. So that's as much as melting as you get on these coasts. Of course, a lot of this ice now, due to climate change, is gone. But this is what the picture looked like in July. Had some beautiful icebergs on the west coast, and these icebergs were, you know, a couple hundred feet tall. 80% of them are below the waterline. And this iceberg was so massive that I actually took a picture of an iceberg through an iceberg. And but what was most intriguing about that entire trip was spending a lot of time and living with the polar Eskimos. And these what's going on here is we're catching birds with big butterfly nets. You know, these are big nets with 16-foot long handles, and you sit in the rocks and you can hear these they call it call them a pileoceroid, but they're little auks, and they're flying really low over these rocks. And if you're hiding and you can hear them coming, then you just throw that net up and you can get 1, 2, 3, 4 birds at a time. And that by the end of the day, you got 200 of these birds around your feet, and then you put them in a little sack and bring them home, and we cook them up, or we'll ferment them in seal skins and bury them in the rocks. Those are really good. How they do that is they take seals. They take seals that they'll shoot on the ice, and they'll take the seal and they'll take all the inside of the seal out through its mouth. So you have basically a sealed skin, and then you'll stuff 200 of those birds in there and sew the mouth of the seal skin up, get all the air out, and then put it in the rocks and put a bunch of rocks on that seal skin so it provides pressure, and that creates like a big canning jar. And then in 3 months you pull that seal skin up out of the rocks there and cut it open, and you got all these little marbleized, greasy little birds that get you through the winter. We traveled by dog team around the north, and we used the same kind of dogs that Robert Perry used in 1909 to go to the North Pole. These are our Inuit dogs we got from Connacht, Greenland, that we trained and used. This is I'm just untangling dog lines at the edge of the Arctic Ocean there. This is at the northernmost part of Greenland, right where the Arctic Ocean is pushing up against the coast. We set up our camp. We put our dogs out in teams of 5 around the tent to protect us from polar bears, and John's just chopping a little ice here for melting in the drinking water. And then this is us flying the National Geographic flag on the northernmost piece of real estate in the world, a little island called Kappa-Kluben Island. It sticks out into the Arctic Ocean about a mile from the northern extremity of Greenland. You can see, it's a little hard to see, but you can see the northern mountains of Greenland right there. But these are the polar Inuit, and they still dress traditionally, polar bear pants, blue fox, coati parka trimmed in foxtail. And by the time these folks reach the age of about 38 years old, they've already traveled 40,000 miles by dog team. They start when they're 5 years old, running their own teams. And so after that expedition, I learned, you know, when I rounded Greenland, we could see the effects of climate change, what was going on in Greenland, glaciers that have receded, talking to Inuit elders about the ice being really thin and dangerous now, about new species of animals and insects that are coming north that they don't even have names for, you know, on and on and on. I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir about this, but so I went on, what I wanted to do was make a summer crossing of the Arctic Ocean to bring attention to climate change, what's going on up in the Arctic. And this graph here, or this picture, or this map, shows this dotted line where the maximum summer extent of sea ice was in 1978, and from 1978 to 2005, we've lost all that shaded blue area. From 2005 to 2007, I haven't updated this yet, all this ice is gone. From 2007 to date, in the summertime, pretty much from that blue line all the way here, we've lost all that, and it's not coming back. In 7 more years, all this ice here, and most of this ice here is going to be gone in 7 more years. Because what's happening is, you know, of course you got 24-hour sunlight hitting off that ice, and it's good to have that ice there because it reflects all that energy back to space. But now that we're getting more and more dark blue area, that sun, that energy from that sun's being absorbed into that water, heating up this very, very fast. And so the more blue water you have, the faster it heats up. And of course, this is our thermostat that regulates the northern hemisphere, basically the world, like Antarctica. And once that's gone, our summers are going to be a lot warmer. Well, our whole entire season, of course. So, my friend Eric Larson and I, Eric, who lives in Grand Marais, actually lives in Colorado now, but we took these whitewater, we decided in order to cross the Arctic Ocean in the summertime, we needed to be amphibious like we were in Greenland, only a little more so, because there's a lot more kind of broken up sea ice and stuff. So we had one-piece dry suits that we'd put on when there's a lot of open water, and we had whitewater canoes that we could catamaran together and get across these open areas of water. And then they drug really well as sleds because I put dog sled runner plastic on the bottoms. I had a company build a little cover for the top, and because they got lots of rocker in them, if they ever tip over, if you just keep pulling them, they right themselves. They right themselves. So this is the Arctic Ocean, 1.5 times the size of the United States, plunges to a depth of 14,000 feet deep. And of course that whole ice on the Arctic Ocean is moving. As you all know, it moves many miles a day, it comes together, forming pressure ridges or tears apart, making big lakes like that. So we're tag teaming on one boat because our boats weigh 300 pounds, and we drag it ahead a mile out to here and then go back and get the other boat. We did that for a week or 2. And then, of course, always climbing up to try to find a better way through. And so we had special snowshoes with crampons on the bottom. We could just scamper right up. Most of the snowshoes got those today now. And then trying to wiggle through that broken ice. And you see all the open water there. Very difficult to get across there without falling in. Sometimes we got lakes that were partially frozen, but if they had a little bit of ice on them, you couldn't actually throw the boat in and start paddling. So one of us would have to, you know, do the backstroke across the lead to create a lane for the boat. And of course we do the rock, paper, scissors thing, and I lost and I had to jump in.